Miranda felt a little guilty but refused to budge. What? He broke the law and got arrested. How's that anyone else's fault? Yvonne looked at her mother and shook her head. You still don't understand how powerful he truly is. If it really was you, you'd better apologize right now and clear things up. That way the Willow family might still be able to survive this. I did nothing. I had nothing to do with this, Miranda said hurriedly, turning to leave at once. Regardless, Yvonne was certain that her mother had been the one to arrange for this to happen. She knew what her mother was like, and it was going to be almost impossible to get her to admit to her faults. Yvonne let out a long sigh, falling back in her seat limply. The Willow family was going to be done for. Wilbur put all these worries and troubles at the back of his head and drove to the morning market a few kilometers from the house. It was barely 9 in the morning and the market was still open. The groceries there were fresher than those in the supermarket, and there were more options as well. Faye had barely gotten an arrest over what had happened with Wilbur, and he felt a little guilty about that. He planned to make her dinner at night as a gesture of appreciation. Just as he was in the middle of grocery shopping, he heard a voice call out to him. "Wilbur Penn?" Wilbur turned around and saw a pretty girl in her 20s, wearing jeans, smiling at him. He paused for a moment before realizing who the girl was. "Nancy Brand?" Wilbur smiled earnestly. Nancy smiled back sweetly, revealing 2 little dimples. "I knew it was you. I almost didn't say hi. I'm glad I did. How's it going, old pal? It's been a while. Are you well?" "I'm pretty good." Wilbur was feeling a little emotional. He had left school after junior high, and Nancy was one of the few classmates he had. The 2 of them had even been deskmates and had a pretty good friendship. Over 10 years had passed since then. Honestly speaking, he wouldn't have said hi to Nancy if she had not done so first. The pair chatted for a while, then Nancy said, "Wilbur, this isn't a good place to talk. There's a gathering happening tomorrow night. Would you like to come?" "Oh, I really shouldn't." Wilbur turned her down. Nancy said, "It's all old friends from school and no one else. I'm sure it's been a while since you've seen everyone. Don't you miss them?" Wilbur knew that he couldn't turn her down this time and thus agreed. Nancy was all smiles as the 2 of them exchanged numbers. She reminded him several times of where the gathering was going to happen the next day before finally parting ways. Wilbur could not help but let out a sigh at the sight of Nancy's figure fading into the distance, feeling as if he could see his lost youth in her. After buying everything he needed, Wilbur drove home to find an invitation on his doorstep. He opened it to see the following message: 8:00 p.m. Sea Lake Island. It was signed by a Mr. Owens. Wilbur smiled. He opened the door and headed inside, putting the groceries in the fridge before beginning to meditate. Around 6 in the evening, Wilbur opened his eyes before beginning to cook in the kitchen. A little over an hour later, a 5-course meal was ready. Faye got home just as he was setting the table. She took in the sight of the meal he had made for her, feeling touched. Wilbur smiled. "Come, eat." Faye nodded at once. She got change and sat at the table. Yet just then Wilbur told Faye that he was heading out. Faye was dumbfounded. A moment later she asked, "The Owens sent you an invite?" "Yep." Wilbur nodded. Faye could not help but grow a little nervous. "I'm going with you." "That's all right. You aren't a part of this. It's best that you don't get involved." Wilbur turned her down, and Faye knew that she wouldn't be much of help with that, and could only watch quietly as Wilbur left.